We're going to talk today about a path for Los Alamos to carbon-free energy. I'll get into why we want to do that. It involves both the county, particularly the utility department, and everybody in it. It's not just a government undertaking. It's basically everybody. I'm speaking today as an individual. I'm not officially representing the county. Most of what I have to say will be right along the lines of county's direction. There's a few things that may go beyond that. The county hasn't gotten around to considering yet. And there's a couple places where I differ a little bit with what the county line, and I'll try to identify those when we come to it. This being an academic community, we should start in an academic way, defining the problem, right? Well, here's the problem, folks. The Earth is getting warmer. Now, of course, its temperature has changed a lot ever since it's been here. There are natural processes that drive it. But unless we get hit by an asteroid, those changes tend to be very slow, and we can adapt to them. This change is happening very quickly, over basically since around 1900. You can see the Earth is warming, and it's not only warming, but it's warming rapidly, and it's not. The trend is not turning around. If you look at the dots in the upper right-hand corner, that's the last 10 years, the mean temperatures for the last 10 years, and those are the hottest 10 years that we've had in recorded history. So it's not changing. We need to do something about it. Well, natural processes are one thing, but the reason it's happening rapidly is man. Our activity is a major driver, probably the major driver, and it is something we can control. Reason modern civilization really runs on energy. That's almost what defines modern civilization, all this energy we have at our fingertips. Most of that comes from burning organic materials, wood, coal, natural gas, oil. That's where most of the energy comes from. Organics, by definition, are hydrocarbons. That is, the molecules contain hydrogen and carbon, and usually some other things. When you burn hydrocarbons, they create water vapor, which is harmless, and they create carbon dioxide, which we used to think was harmless. But in fact, it's a greenhouse gas. And that is, when it gets up in the atmosphere, and it stays there for a long time, hundreds to thousands of years, it traps heat, just like the glass in the greenhouse. Or you can think of it as a blanket around the Earth. And it warms the planet. And that's what's been happening to us. How much do we produce? And I'm going to be talking here just about the community of Los Alamos, not the laboratory. This doesn't include the lab. We ourselves emit into the atmosphere approximately 240,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide and equivalent greenhouse gases every year. That's roughly 40% natural gas, roughly 40% from electricity, and roughly 20% from petroleum fuels. There's a little bit from municipal solid waste, the stuff that goes to the landfill. I'm not going to talk any more about that today. So, 240,000 metric tons, what is that? Well, that's the weight of 1,200 diesel locomotives. And that's what this little community puts in the atmosphere every year. Okay, what are we going to do about it? We're going to have to change the energy that we use and how we use it. And since it's so fundamental to modern society, that's a big change. So we think globally, everybody's got this problem, but we can only affect what we can do, so act locally. Here are some local goals, and again, this is exclusive of the lab. Simply stated, we need to stop burning hydrocarbons. Now I can stop, right? Well, sorry about that. More specifically, the county has several specific goals that have been identified. About a dozen years ago, the Board of Public Utilities committed to becoming a carbon-neutral electric provider by 2040. We also would like to phase out natural gas by 2070. A year ago, the Council adopted a climate action plan which calls for the community to be climate neutral by 2050, except for natural gas, and I'll get into why that's an exception later. And their climate action plan, that climate action plan really addresses both primary energy, that is what we get as energy that I'm going to talk about today, and consumption uses. Virtually everything that we consume in its production or its transportation involved energy. And that all those supply chains are going to have to change also. We can't do a whole lot about those, although we can try to get pick and choose what we consume. The county is not mandating anything. That's where you all come in to make changes. The county is largely in a support role at this point to facilitate those changes, particularly in providing additional electricity and carbon-free electricity while we're at it. So, how do we do this? Well, the simple one, to understand anyway, is replacing our motor vehicles with electric vehicles. Most folks that I know, let me back up, that's going to happen anyway. I mean, that's not something that the county or anybody else is pushing hard on. Electric vehicles are coming. They're coming in the rest of the world. They're coming here. Who knows exactly how long, but probably over the next couple decades or so. Most people that I know that have electric vehicles really like them, irrespective of what of the emission changes. They just like to drive them. They have a lot of advantages. I will comment, and this is strictly my personal comment. The county hasn't said anything about this. Whether you're sticking with piston pounders or going to electric, either way, we don't really need most of these giant pickups and SUVs that you see running around. And going to more reasonable sized vehicles would reduce our carbon footprint some too. But buying EVs is not by itself enough. We have to charge them. Chargers need to be in a number of different locations. Some people have garages where they could charge. Not all of our residents have garages or even off-street parking. We have to have charging available where people need them. You can't just plug a charger in any random place. You have to have a power distribution system to get to it. They draw quite a bit of power when they're charging a vehicle. And then further upstream, you have to have the electricity to go into the distribution system, to go into the charger, to go into your battery for your car. So there's several steps to this process. The county is conducting a study right now. Public Works is overseeing that with utility involvement to look at the charging and distribution system requirements and try to figure out where do we put chargers and how many do we need and what sizes do we need and things of that variety. That won't be the last word. It's more like the first word, but it's something to get us started. That's due in December. Then we get to what I think is our most difficult challenge, natural gas. And not everyone will agree that's the most difficult one, but we can debate that in another forum sometime. Why is it so difficult? Well, let me start with what is it? Natural gas is mostly methane, CH4. That's a hydrocarbon. And when it burns like any other hydrocarbon, it produces CO2. It produces some other things too that we won't talk about today, but the main thing we're concerned about is the carbon dioxide. However, methane itself, when it's not burned, is also a very powerful greenhouse gas. In fact, it's many times more powerful than CO2. And guess what? Well fields leak. They leak a lot. And we happen to draw our natural gas from the Permian Basin down by Hobbs into West Texas, which is, the leakiest well field in the country. There's a lot of uncertainty about exactly how much gas comes out of that or any other well field, and people are working on reducing that uncertainty. But in really basically, the amount of global warming that is driven by those fugitive emissions from the Permian Basin are probably about the same as what is driven by the CO2 that we emit from burning the natural gas here. So it gets us coming and going. It's a big issue, and the methane issue really hasn't been nearly as well understood or publicized as the CO2 part of this, but it's a big one also. Well, why is it such a hard problem to deal with? Because natural gas heats almost every building in this county. And that's roughly, very roughly, 2/3 of our overall natural gas use. So getting off of natural gas is going to take the efforts of every property owner in this community, in addition to the utilities. That's what makes it so difficult. And barring mandates, which nobody's expecting to be implemented here, but who knows about state or federal government at some point. Barring mandates, we think it's going to take a while to do that, but we still have to do it. That's why the later goal on that particular one. So, how do we get off of natural gas? We'll start with space heating, since that's the biggie. The answer today, I don't know about 50 years from now, but today is mostly heat pumps. Heat pumps are really an old technology. You may or may not have heard the term, but your refrigerator is a heat pump. An air conditioner is a heat pump. And heat pumps can work either direction. The most familiar example of that is the wall units that you've seen in many hotel rooms. You tell it whether you want to heat or cool, and it pumps the heat one direction or another. They work by the fact that air contains a great deal of heat energy. Even air that we think of as very cold has a lot of heat energy in it. And a heat pump extracts heat energy from the air from cooler air, cooling it even further, and that's free energy. It does have to do some work, which takes electricity to pump that energy up a thermodynamic hill, and then it exhausts it into warmer air. The magic of this is that the amount of heat energy that you can get out of a heat pump is of order 3 to 5 times the amount of heat that you would get from burning the same amount of electricity in an ordinary electric heater. That makes it much more efficient. Even with that, heat pumps alone can't do it all. We just can't supply enough electricity to heat every home today, every building in town today, with a heat pump. We need to reduce the amount of artificial heat that we really need. It doesn't have to be reduced a huge amount, but it certainly has to be reduced some. That's fairly easy to do in new homes. We're not building very many new homes. Most that we are tend to be multi-family, fairly compact homes, and that by itself makes them much more energy efficient. We've got to focus on existing homes, and mostly the older homes, which most of our existing homes are. There's no magic here. The outer envelope has to minimize heat loss. That means through the walls, through the ceiling or roof, crawl space underneath, which a lot of people forget about. We have to reduce the heat losses through there. And particularly through windows and doors. Older windows are like a hole in the wall when it comes to heat. Now, newer windows are a lot better. But it's not just the windows or doors themselves. That's where most of your heat leaks are. They're around the edges. Okay, and while new windows and doors are expensive, although they may pay for themselves in the long run and reduced utility bills, heat leaks are usually pretty cheap to fix. You got to find them first, and there's ways of doing that. We could spend another hour on that subject. We won't. Whether one has yet converted to a heat pump or not, one can lower the gas usage or energy usage, the bills and the emissions, by sealing up the leaks as best possible. Well, that space heating is 2/3 of our use of gas. There's other secondary uses. that use up the other third. The biggest of these is water heating. The ultimate solution there will probably turn out to be heat pumps also. Now, people may not convert to those right away. They might go from gas to traditional electric first, maybe. This is, although there are heat pump water heaters, and you can buy them today, I'm not sure they're all ready for prime time in all applications. They're still quite expensive in general. They're not available in all sizes. So this is one this actually may be the hardest one technologically to get right, shall we say. So this is where we're going eventually, but it may not be something we want to hurry out and do, depending. Everybody's different. One that would work quite well, but we don't see a lot of, is solar hot water heating. Put solar collectors on your roof, heat the water during the day, keep it in a big tank if you have room for that, and use it overnight. There's actually more interest in this community, I think, in solar hot water heating 20 years ago than there is today. Maybe we can get back to that. Some people like tankless or point-of-use water heating. That doesn't use a lot of electricity over a long period of time because it runs for a short period of time. But while it's running, it draws a huge amount of electricity, and that's problematic by itself, unless you have a battery at home. But, to pull that energy off the line or pull that power off the line greatly increases your peak power needs. Clothes dryers, there are heat pump clothes dryers. And from what I hear, I don't have any real experience, they work pretty well. That's probably the direction we're going there, too. When it comes to cooking, there's a different solution. The cooktop can be replaced today with an induction stove, or induction cooktop, excuse me. Those are more energy efficient than electric or gas. They heat faster than either one. And again, most everybody I know that has tried them out really loves them just from the cooking standpoint, irrespective of the fact that they use less energy and cause less emissions. There's no real replacement yet that I'm aware of for a gas or electric oven. I'll have to admit that. Another thing that's already in your kitchen and is actually very energy efficient is the microwave. So when you use that microwave and people complain about it, that's that's not real cooking. Well, it's a very efficient way of doing it. And then there's the lowly pilot light that many appliances still have, and they don't burn a lot, but they're sitting there burning it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and unless you turn it off for the season and turn it back on again in the fall, it's 365 days a year. Those can be replaced by electric ignition, but you really need something that fits your particular appliance, and those may or may not be available. If they do, and you're not ready to replace the appliance, you can consider replacing the ignition. I'd like to ask a question here very quickly. How many people use electricity for their water heating? 1. How many use gas? Almost everybody. Okay. Same question for clothes dryers. How many use electric clothes dryers?
None. No, you don't have to have one.
Well, that's true, but a lot of people do. So, hands again for electric. How many use gas clothes dryers? Okay, roughly the same. Cooking, how many use electric for using electric range? Okay, and how many use gas? Okay, roughly half again. Thank you. How many have a pilot light in your house, or do you even know? Okay, quite a few. All right. We're trying to the utilities is trying to get a better handle on all these secondary uses, and we've got UNM doing a study for us right now. We'll probably take till next summer to get the report. You may see a survey fairly soon. That's part of the study. It's not the whole thing. But they're trying to figure out how many people use electricity, how many people use gas, how do they use them, what's the intention, etc. we're trying to get that data. This is a data-driven community. We've got to have data, right? More data. Where we're going to wind up, we hope and expect, in a couple decades or so, is the energy-efficient, all-electric home. There's nothing new here that I haven't just talked about. We need an envelope that is tight with respect to thermal energy all the way around, top, bottom, and all the sides, and the doors and windows. And then we need efficient heat sources where we need them for space heating, water heating, clothes dryers, and of course a different kind of cooktop in your kitchen. Making all those changes is going to require some planning ahead on everybody's part. Nobody's expecting that people will run out and throw away perfectly good appliances and replace them with newer, more modern, more energy efficient appliances. I mean, you can if you want to, but for most folks, the time to change them is when you're going to change anyway. And this is the silver lining behind the fact that a lot of modern appliances don't last nearly as long as they ought to. So if you're planning ahead and thinking about what am I going to do when that dryer dies, or when that range dies, or when the furnace dies, hopefully you figure that out and figured out what you're going to need to do to change it before it dies. Changing the appliance is one thing. In many cases, there'll need to be changes in your electric service also, and that takes some planning ahead too. If you wait for the stove to die, and then your gas stove to die, and then you want an electric one, and you don't have an electric line for the stove, that needs to be done. And by the time you get that done, you may not want to wait that long. So plan ahead. I'll admit, none of this is cheap. Most of the appliances, with the exception maybe of water heaters, the heat pump appliances and induction stoves aren't that much more expensive than the traditional ones that they replace. But changing electric service may be, depending on what you've got and what it takes to do it. It does have some beneficial effect on the retail value of your house and should reduce your monthly electric bills. But every home is different. Everybody's going to have to figure it out for themselves, although the county will try to help where we can to help figure it out. Okay, that's what all of us can do. What is the utilities' role in this? Well, we still need to deliver reliable and economical electric power, and we need to make it clean, meaning carbon-free. And there'll need to be more of it, as I will get to. This wouldn't be a Los Alamos talk if I didn't have at least one quantitative slide, right? Okay. You'll see the main fuels we use. This is basically just the tabular version of what I showed you to begin with, the pie chart. But the key is in the last column. We want to get petroleum and natural gas down to zero, usage down to zero, and hence emissions down to zero. But electric energy use will have to go up. Right now, we use roughly 120 gigawatts a year, gigawatt hours, excuse me. If you think on your utility bill, you pay for kilowatt hours. A gigawatt hour is 1 million kilowatt hours. That's going to go up. Our current ballpark guess is maybe as much as 40 or 50%. We don't know that for sure yet. That's average or total over the whole year. But maybe a bigger challenge is the maximum electric power that is needed. Right now, our daily maximum tends to run around 20 megawatts. We don't hardly ever get more than 23 or 24 as a peak load, and that's usually in the evening. We anticipate that peak load may turn out to be more like 50 or 60 megawatts when we do all this. And it won't be in the evening, it'll be at 6 o'clock in the morning on a cold winter morning. It won't be every morning, thankfully, but we have to be able to meet that peak need. So, what do we have to do to the utility system? Well, we'll start out with a very much updated distribution system. My name for it's 2.0. We actually are completing a study right now that will give us some guidance as to what's really needed there. I actually was expecting to have a little more in the way of preliminary results before today, including I was actually looking for something yesterday, but we don't quite have it yet. In any case, this is all preliminary at this point. Our current distribution system is old. It works well, but it needs to be renewed just to keep it working at the same rate that it has been. We do, however, need to be able to meet this peak demand that will be much increased. And that means we're going to need to be improving a lot of different parts of the system. Substations will need to be increased in number and or upgraded. The main feeders, the big overhead lines that you see on top of the power poles and, of course, underground where you can't see them, those we think are probably adequate, preliminary result. And then the pole pigs, the transformers you see up on the poles or again in the distribution boxes, those and many of the wires to the houses will need to be upgraded. We don't have all the details yet. The good news is the technology all exists. We don't have to guess at what we're going to need there. We'll have to guess in the magnitude, but I should say we don't have to guess on how to do it. We don't yet have a good handle on what it will cost. This study should give us a first cut at that, but certainly it won't be the final answer. We're not going to do it all tomorrow. This is going to be spread out over many years, but it is a big project that's coming. And we have to put carbon-free electricity into that local grid, and that is a significant challenge. We don't yet know all the answers to that one. We're kind of guessing on what the technology and the economics are going to be over the next few decades. There are several different kinds of sources that we're looking at. There are baseload sources. Nuclear would be a great one. There's no nuclear plants presently slated for this part of the country. That doesn't mean we don't keep looking. Excuse me. We already get some electric power from the Western Area Power Administration that runs the big power dams out west. But we won't get any more of that. Those are pretty well tapped out. Eventually, geothermal may be a good baseload resource. We don't know yet. That's a promising one, but the development is slow. If it works here, it'll work in a lot of other places too. This could be a major key worldwide, but it's not there yet. So we're watching that one closely. Then there's the intermittent sources, solar in particular, wind. We have two small low-head hydroelectric plants up on the Rio Chama at Abiquiu and El Vado Lakes. When they are running, they produce a lot of power, but they basically run when the river's running, and that's during the spring and early summer snowbelt season. So we can't use it year-round or can't get very much out of it year-round. You can't really talk about intermittent sources without talking about storage. Really, they go together. Today, at the retail level, homes and cars, various lithium-based batteries are pretty much the only game in town. At utility scale, there aren't too many more options today, but there will be. There's a lot of different things under development over the whole world, various stages of development. Some will work out, some will not work out. We're actively watching all of those. There are projects, some of the development projects are actually very close to us and might make for some convenient sources if they prove to be viable, which we don't know yet. Another significant challenge when it comes to this modern electrification is the transmission grid. Here's what the big high tension lines that are usually on steel towers, usually in triples. You see, that system in the whole country really is in need of renewal and updating, and it's not getting it. And that's a major problem for the whole country. It's a problem for us too. There's a fair amount of wind power available in southern and eastern New Mexico, but we don't have transmission capacity in this state, north-south, to get it from there to here. So we can't make good use of that wind power. It all goes east-west, a lot of it to California. We do have one very large project in the works. It's called Foxtail Flats. It's a big solar and battery plant up near Farmington. Why do you say near Farmington? Because it can make use of the transmission lines that we used to have for the San Juan generating station that's now demolished. This plant would go in close to it, use those transmission lines. As planned, and we're contracted for this, we have a company on the hook to deliver this. This would produce well over half of the electric power that both the laboratory and the community here need. Yeah, it's a biggie. That would go a long ways towards our carbon-free electric goals. You'll notice, however, on the slide, I put a question mark after Foxtail Flats. We have a contract, we have a deal, and that was supposed to start delivering power next year, early next year to start, actually. Let's just say it is running into Washington problems. We are still hopeful, we are still optimistic, and we're watching this very closely to see if we can get this through without too much interference or delay. We've already had some delay, but we're still not 100% sure of that, hence the question mark. Hopefully it comes through, and late next year and into the following year, half your power or more will be solar in origin. That's the plan. So you might say, well, why don't we just put solar panels on everybody's rooftop? In some places that works pretty well. Not here so much. We do have a number of installations already. There's more than 500 of them in the county. And the installed capacity is about 3.5 megawatts. That, of course, is at peak on a good, clear, sunny day like today. It doesn't match our doesn't match our loads very well. Because remember, the peak load is in the winter, in the early morning. Solar power works great for places where the peak load is air conditioning, and it's in the afternoon in the summertime. It kind of tracks the air conditioning load, the solar cells do. Doesn't work here. Also, many of our rooftops really aren't physically suited for any significant solar panel installation, or it's very expensive to do. They're not oriented correctly, they're not structurally designed for it. There are a number of issues in trying to put those on everybody's rooftop. And solar panels on rooftops are more expensive than utility scale, mostly from economies of scale. But there's other issues too. So this can be a piece of the solution, but it's probably not a large piece of the solution in this community. As I said before, you really can't talk about solar without talking about storage, batteries, distributed batteries, that is, batteries in your home. You know, Tesla Powerwalls, people may have heard about. You can charge those in the daytime, either from your own solar cells or from the utility solar cells, and then use the power at night or otherwise to minimize demand peaks. Depending on individual situations, batteries might be a better investment for the individual than rooftop generation. And it might be more feasible in many cases where you got trees blocking the path to your tree to your top, to your roof, whatever. So, to summarize here, we really can be greenhouse gas free or carbon neutral, depending on how you want to look at it. But it takes everybody's involvement and the utilities department. We need to switch over to EVs. We need to work on our buildings, both the outer envelope and all of the appliances inside that presently burn gas or even electricity. Maybe rooftop solar and batteries, those are maybes for individual situations. The utilities' role in that is we've got to provide the electric power so that when you get an electric car, you can charge it. So that when you get a heat pump, you've got plenty of electricity on that cold winter morning to keep yourself warm. And we want all of that electric power to be carbon free. So we're busy searching for those sources right now. And with that, I will close and be happy to answer questions if people have questions or comments. And I know we got started kind of late and some people have to leave. I won't be too offended if you do. And I'll be happy to stay here as long as people would find it useful. So thank you.
And I have the microphone, so I'm coming to you.
Thank you. It's not, is this on?
No, it isn't, Sue.
Mm-hmm. Well, the red light's on.
I see, good.
I guess
Doesn't need to, I can talk plenty loud.
There's a little green light on it.
There's a green light on it. Yeah.
Okay, so he's getting it, but the audience isn't. So
Okay,
I'll try to repeat the question.
I have no problem speaking up.
We know you don't, Sue.
For this fabulous overview, I just wanted to mention, since you did, that yes, the county is currently undertaking a survey for electric vehicle adoption in the community. We want to know if you're thinking about getting an EV, if you're not thinking about getting an EV, what your thoughts are about where we should put chargers for EVs and so forth. It's been advertised in all the media, and please take that poll for us to help us out, because otherwise we have no idea what y'all are thinking. So, thank you.
Thank you. And to repeat briefly or summarize, Sue point.
It's the county that's doing the survey, environmental, our sustainability manager and the environmental sustainability board.
Yeah. Sue points out that the county is presently doing a survey to ask people about their intentions with respect to EVs. And she's asking everybody to fill that out. It would be helpful. Thank you.
And you can find it on the county webpage under surveys, correct?
I have no idea.
I believe
That would be a good place.
I believe that's right.
Well, finding things on the county's webpage sometimes is challenging.
Yeah.
But it is there somewhere.
Yeah.
So is every book someplace in the new. It's a different story. Anyway. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I have 3 questions. It might be too many. Just tell me if it's too many.
Let's ask them one at a time.
Okay, the first one is, what happened to the nuclear power plant, I thought it was in Idaho, that this county was going to tap into?
Well, we were very engaged in that project for a number of years, and it was in Idaho. Your memory is correct, and that would have provided some baseload nuclear power. And about a year and a half, or almost 2 years ago now, that project failed. It just did. And I've asked and asked and asked, and I've gotten about as many different answers as to why as people that I've asked. So I won't try to speculate on which of those is the correct one. It may be some combination of all. But that project no longer exists. I don't see any likelihood that it will be restarted. So that one's gone, unfortunately. And I can't give you a really in-depth answer as to why. And by the way, I didn't repeat your question. The question was, what happened to what was called the carbon-free power project, the nuclear plant that we were partners in, along with many other communities.
Okay, so my second question has to do with the transmission lines that you mentioned. What is the state doing to increase the capacity for these transmission lines south to north, if that's the problem? Most people live north, and I mean Albuquerque up, in this state.
Okay, the question is, what is the state doing about the lack of transmission capacity in the state south to north? And the answer seems to be very little. Besides, why does the state care? Once you get to Albuquerque, they don't care anymore, I don't think, except maybe up to Santa Fe. That's just my comment. That's not an official position of the county, I assure you. But there doesn't seem to be a whole lot in the mill to solve that problem, unfortunately. And you had a third.
This one might be the most complex. What is the deal between the connection with the Texas power system and this state. Their system seemed to fail about 3 or 4 years ago, and we all paid the price. My bill went up so high I can't even believe it.
Are you talking about electric or gas?
I'm not sure, but they had a big freeze. Everything fell apart in Texas. Maybe, I guess it was gas.
You need to repeat the question.
Yeah, she's asking what's the connection between Texas and New Mexico with respect to energy and electric or gas. Gas-wise, we're basically pulling from the same pool. So if they have a demand down there, it can affect our rates here. And the rate you pay varies with the cost that the county pays for gas. Electric's somewhat different. Texas has its own electric grid. Otherwise, there's an eastern grid in this country and a western grid. And there's Texas. There's 3 grids. And they don't talk to each other. There's technical reasons that they haven't been able to intertie, and efforts to intertie them have run aground over the usual kinds of political squabbling. So when they have a serious electric problem, they really can't solve it by drawing from elsewhere. That's part of what makes it so difficult down there, although they've done a lot in that 3 or 4 years to try to upgrade their system and avoid that in the future. I don't remember offhand that caused a big increase in our electric costs here. I could be wrong on that. Gas was the big thing that was a spike a few years ago. Yeah, that's a little different story. Kyle. Sorry I wasn't able to give really better answers to good questions. I'm sorry. You have reached the depths of my ignorance here.
I have 2 questions, Robert, and they're not actually related to the county, but just in general. I'm pretty sure you're going to know. And one is that I seem to recall reading in the paper that people, like political figures in this state, were promoting natural gas as a great energy source. But since my understanding is it stays in the atmosphere a lot longer than CO2. So did I misread or mishear something? But it seemed like they wanted the public to know that we have plenty of natural gas and it's a great thing to use.
Okay, so Kyle's commenting that she thinks a lot of the public figures in this state are promoting natural gas because we have a lot of it. Well, some I'm sure are, and others are not, and it may have to do more with political dogma than anything else. The reality is, to get to your technical point, methane doesn't stay in the atmosphere as long as CO2. Its time frame tends to be tens to hundreds of years, whereas CO2, it's hundreds to thousands.
Okay.
But it's much more, has a much higher global warming potential. That is, it causes more global warming when it goes up there. Most of the numbers that you see actually look at it averaged over 100 years. If over 20 years, you see those numbers occasionally too. It's 3 or 4 times more powerful than it is over 100 years. It's nasty stuff. And of course, methane comes from other sources other than just what we're doing. There's a lot of things that produce methane, and some of them we can control and some of them we can't.
Right. Okay, my second question has to do with all this cryptocurrency and the amount of electricity that it needs. Do you think we're going to have transmission lines or an electrical grid that can accommodate that? I think there's one plan for Texas, but I'm not sure.
The questions about cryptocurrency and the power demands of that and what effect that might have on us. I think you're absolutely correct. That's a big demand in many places on the electric grid, and that's a big challenge. I don't think it will have as much effect here, particularly if we can get ourselves to be more independent. You know, the Foxtail Flats plant that we're talking about, that's ours. We control I mean, we don't own it, but we're contracted for it. We control the power that comes out of that and where it goes and who we sell it to. Actually, when it comes online, there'll be a surplus there, and who we sell that to and for how long is stuff we still have to figure out. We're really looking at trying to be less dependent on the rest of the world than we are right now. Utilities here has gone back and forth over the decades and philosophy. How much do we want to own versus buy? We used to own a lot of it. Now, at the moment, with the San Juan station gone, we're actually buying a large part of it. And we're wanting to go back more to controlling it more. So I'm not looking at that as a really big problem for us, but it is a problem nationally, yes.
You said that Los Alamos wasn't a good candidate for rooftop solar because we do more winter heating than summer cooling. But might that be changing as the climate warms? It seems like I'm hearing a lot of people saying, well, we didn't used to need air conditioning here, but now we bought one.
Okay, her question is, she's questioning the comment that rooftop solar isn't a particularly good match here to our demands. It's absolutely true that we are getting a good deal warmer in the summer and air conditioning becomes more desirable. But if you look at the numbers, how much power it might take to run air conditioning here versus how much it might take to heat, we're still, the critical demand is still very much on the heating side. So that's not true everywhere. You know, go to Phoenix, different problem. Go to Southern California. And of course you see these huge subdivisions with solar panels on everybody's roof. Of course, a lot of those they built so that the roof was aimed at the sun. And it works great there. It just doesn't fit very well here.
I've heard a number of colorful reasons that we don't have net metering for solar. But I have a very specific question, which is there any legal reason that the county could not have net metering for solar?
Is there a legal reason that we could not? He's asking whether there's a legal reason that we can't have net metering for solar, for rooftop solar power. And the answer is no, there's no legal prohibition against it. That's a policy decision that was made actually many years ago.
About two, I think.
Well, the policy decision was actually made many years ago. It didn't get implemented when it should have been. And that was just discovered a couple of years ago. That led to a lot of confusion in that whole issue.
In your opinion, is net metering a bad idea?
In my opinion, what we're doing, net billing, is a better idea. And we spent a lot of time on that a couple of years ago. But I don't think we will go back. And most of the power companies in the country that started with net metering have gone away from it also.
It's still required in New Mexico, isn't it, for commercial companies?
I don't believe it is, but I'm not 100% sure.
It was the last time I checked.
Yeah.
One quick question. Do you expect that winter is particularly different at Foxtail Flats?
The claim from the developers, and they actually have quite a bit of experience with this, is no, that they've got enough additional capacity built in that even on winter days they will be able to get full output, which, by the way, is supposed to be 170 megawatts during the day. Now, some of that will be needed to charge the batteries, but that's a big plant. We'll find out very soon because there's another plant right next to it that's already been built that's similar. It's actually slightly larger. was built for PNM. So we'll see how that one works operationally before ours comes online. And I think I might have forgotten to repeat your question. Let's see. And the question is, will winter adversely affect how Foxtail Flats works? We don't think so. It isn't proven yet. The plant right next to it hopefully will give us that information before we go online with ours.
One last question. If it's a good investment or could be a good investment for people to put in battery storage, wouldn't that also imply that it might be a good investment for the county and the lab to do the same?
Well,
Repeat the question.
thank you.
You're welcome.
If batteries are a good investment or might be a good investment for individuals at home, does that imply it'd be a good investment for county or the laboratory? As I said, you really can't talk about solar or other intermittent sources without talking about storage. And the plant that we're having built up at Foxtail Flats, that's got a lot of storage in it, a lot of battery storage in it also. One of the ways that we're looking at is possibly more distributed utility scale storage around town. Batteries per neighborhood or something like that. We're also looking at, can we put a big storage facility here in Los Alamos? We may not have the open acreage for big solar fields, but maybe we can put storage here by one technology or another. It might not be battery, might be something else. So you import the electricity from someplace else and store it here. That's another architecture that we're looking at. Don't know the answer to the question yet. So could it be a good investment? Could. Yes, maybe. We don't know for sure. But good point. Thank you. Becky?
So could you explain what the problem is with Foxtail Flats, since it looks like it would help us enormously?
Okay. Foxtail Flats is built on Native American land, which we thought, hey, that's good because the tribe gets some money out of it too. But that's federal land. That means it has to go through the NEPA process, National Environmental Policy Act. So first the tribe looked at it, and for whatever reason, nothing happened there for months. When you've dealt with Native Americans before, you understand that can happen. It did. Once they finished, and they were happy with it, then it went to BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs. They are still working on it, looking at it, sitting on it, however you want to describe it. We keep getting told it's within a few weeks. Last I heard it was going to be by the end of this month. Well, the end of this month isn't very far away to get what's called the FONSI, which lets us go forward with that. That's problem number one. That is a delay, and that's been a delay so far. Problem number two is that although we don't know all the details of the developer's financing for the project, we assume that it involves some of the government tax credits that the current climate in Washington is trying to reduce or eliminate. So if the delay gets to be long enough that the developer is not eligible for those, it changes his financing and ends his view of the financial viability of this project. And even though he has a contract, we all know, hey, there's always bankruptcy court and there's ways of getting out of there. A lot of that is speculation, but that's our two major concerns. Right now, the delay through BIA, and then our concern about the financing. And we don't know all the details of the developer's financing, but they do, and I'm sure they're watching it really closely too. So they've got a huge number of these facilities around the country. They're pros at this business. Yes, sir.
A piece of data that I never, quote unquote, see is, okay, I replace a gas-fired boiler with an electric one. And so I am now creating fewer greenhouse gases. But it's electric. The electric company is, many of them, burning methane or something. And so to what extent does where does the balance lie? Have we in toto creating fewer greenhouse gases? And as a secondary question, what percent of commercial electric generations are, quote, green, unquote?
Okay, two related questions, and good questions. Questions been asked for a long time. If you convert from gas heating in your home to electric, but the electric source is coming from a coal-fired or gas-fired power plant, have you really gained anything in terms of greenhouse gas emissions?
Transmission losses.
And what the second question, the second part of the question was, what percentage of our electricity is green, non-carbon today? To address your question, you're absolutely correct today, and it's been true for a long time. That's part of but as you saw, we are trying to move to carbon-free sources. And we can't do everything at one time. You know, we can try to move to carbon-free sources, but is everybody going to convert their heating system at the same instant? It's not going to work that way. So we really have to look at the end game here. Eventually, we want no natural gas burned in your home, and we don't want any coal or natural gas burned in power plants to produce that power. But, you know, the transition process, if you do the arithmetic today, it wouldn't be very favorable, I'll admit. But we're looking at where we're trying to get to down the road.
One.
And you asked what percentage of our power is green today? Very roughly, a little over 20% of it is hydroelectric to start with. At times in the past, but not in recent years, it's been as high as 40% in this community. But it actually has declined some over time for various reasons. We won't get any more hydroelectric power, but that's clean, of course. And in terms of the rest of it, right now we're buying most of the balance of our electric power, and most of that does come from fossil plants, either coal or gas.
One final question. Do you think we globally have the will to do this?
Do we globally have the will to go carbon free? I don't know. I sure hope so, but that hope is not a strategy, and I'm focusing more on what can we do, and I hope that other people look at it the same way. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And people will do things at different rates, but as the technology improves, it does make it easier, both technologically and economically, but that doesn't mean everybody will do it. So you found a question that my answer to is just as vague, if not more so, than the answers to her questions. Sorry.
I recently saw a list for the county that said I think there were 800 and some new housing units either recently coming up or in the near future. And I'm curious how many of those are going to be all electric, and if not most of them, why not?
I don't have numbers in the top of my head because every development's different and it keeps changing. I know that big New Hill Apartments development that's going in on Trinity, that one unfortunately is gas. The individual developer still has the choice of what they want to do there. The county's not mandating it. Personally, I'd prefer that the county push a little harder in that direction, but that's not my call. It's some significant fraction on both sides, and I can't give you exact numbers or even very close numbers either way. I'm sorry. And I think did I forget to duplicate or repeat your question. What's the fraction in new housing between gas and electric? And I wish it were all electric. It should be, but some is going one way and some is going the other way. As time goes on, the economics should convince housing developers and other developers, commercial properties too, to go more electric, and we're certainly hoping to educate them.
Can the county have building codes that require more electric use for stoves and for heating and placement of buildings for solar or passive solar?
The question is, can't the county require electric use, or can't we require placement to make rooftop solar more effective? The answer is yes, we could, but there was a question earlier about political will. That one's above my pay grade. It has been recommended that be done, but the county has not yet mandated that. Speaking of county,
So, to follow up on that question, my understanding is that the state of New Mexico does not allow us to forbid natural gas hookups for new housing. Am I mistaken on that?
the question is, she thought that the state did not allow us to forbid natural gas. I don't think that is true. There have certainly been a number of places around the country that have tried to do that, and various entities, usually commercial rather than residential groups, have gone to court. And the most prominent case, there's one out from Berkeley, California. There's another one grinding through the courts in New York. So there's a question of whether the government has the authority to do that or not. Good legal, and that's discouraging many jurisdictions from passing such legislation. I don't think we have that in this state.